Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of Civil Dialogue, the show where we discuss history, theology, politics, the arts, science, and more. Most importantly, we seek to maintain open minds and civil behavior as we proceed with our discussions. Once again, I am your host, the Creative Nerd, coming to you live from Manchester, Maryland tonight once again. Now, in the last episode, with our guest, Miss Janie Barbosa, we examined how the media we consume can influence civil dialogue through, for one thing, theme, the construction of the theme, and authorial intent, and our choice of words. However, one other field which greatly demands a greater exploration is the subject of acting, given its emphasis on numerous people portraying a variety of characters in multiple stories. This field, and many others like it, but this field in particular, can teach our generation and even future generations the keys to successfully communicating civil conversations on the deepest topics. With that out of the way, we now welcome our our next guest, coming to us live from Westminster, Maryland, one Mike Panzarotto. Sir, glad to have you with us.
Very glad to be here.
Well then, I say, sir, let us get underway.
Excellent.
So, to kick things off for our viewers, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little about yourself?
Well, as you said, my name is Michael Panzarotto. I've been here for 1,000 years. I am a father, a husband of one, father of two. I live in Westminster. I attend St. John's Catholic Church. I teach both adult confirmation and fourth graders. Hopefully we'll get back to that soon. And I am touching the wood as we speak. I'm 46, 2 dogs, about the size of it.
And you do have the opportunity to add anything more if necessary.
Okay.
Oh, did your sound cut off?
Okay, you hear me? No, I hear you.
Oh, yep. We're good. Go on ahead.
Okay, do you want to ask me questions, or you just want?
Yeah, I'm doing the question. I'm the questionnaire for this. Now, for our next question, this is a little bit about you. We have a couple questions to go through before going on to the main topic.
Okay.
Now, first, what do you value most in life?
My faith, my family, my friends, and work. And by the work, I mean the act. Those are the things that are definitely most important that are at my core. Always, sometimes the order shuffles a bit depending on where the occupation of the mind sets, but those are the things that I count as most important.
Very good. Very good answer, sir, and some very good things to balance as well. Okay, so next up, what is one quality which will make our world better, and how will this quality improve the state of our world today?
Love, I think, is the answer to that. And when I say that, I want to parse that out a little bit. I don't mean love as in the sense that it's, I think, generally thrown around today. I mean love in a more, maybe a more biblical sense, and I mean willing the good of other as other. I think that that's the truest definition of the word, and I think that it's very, I think it's fallen onto very hard times in the sense that it's very overused. Without, I think that it engenders respect, and I think, as the scriptures say, it casts out fear. Perfect love casts out fear, and that's a big problem right now. There's fear going on in the world, so I think that the closer we get to that, of course, it leads us to the divine because we know that God is love. So it leads us to the divine. It's given to us from the divine, and I think that if we would embrace that a little more and really study it, not just the emotional entanglements that are involved, but really study it, things will get better.
Very good. Now, would that be platonic love rather than romantic love that we usually associate?
I think, well, there you could break that up a lot. Like I said, you've got willing the good of the other as others, so that could be friend,
Okay.
family, love, spouse, however you want to look at that. But I think even, the Greeks had, I think, had three versions of the word: agape, phileo, and eros. I think a
Okay.
great deal of time is spent today studying the eros side of it, and a great deal diminished, or has greatly diminished, the phileo and the brotherly love, and
Right.
agape. Yes, all three of them are worthy of really good, in-depth study.
Okay. Very good explanation there, sir. Now, on the flip side of that coin, what is one crowd? Yeah, what is one characteristic which is problematic in our world today, and how does it inhibit the chances of our world becoming a better place? The key word is inhibit.
Pride, I think.
Hmm.
Pride in the sense of I can do this on my own. I don't need anybody, which automatically alienates God from the equation. You know, but even the help of others, or it gives you a sense of superiority. And if you feel superior to people, you're not as interested in hearing what they have to say. If you feel like you can do things on your own, I think that it's very rare that a person like that looks to the advice or the worth of other people the way he should, or she should.
That would be good advice for both major political parties here in the United States to follow.
Exactly. Yeah. Very good.
Okay, to wrap the personal questions up, if you could have dinner, if you could have dinner with a famous person, dead or alive, who would that be? This could be a famous author, a famous politician, famous theologian, celebrity, etc., as long as they are or were famous.
So, okay, the first answer would probably, it would be, there's a pecking order to this question. Who wouldn't want to talk to Jesus in person? But I would be too awestruck. So I feel like at this level it would. So then I went to St. John Paul II, who was a hero of mine.
Mm,
I think he would be the best. I could get a lot out of him because he was not only Pope, but actor and poet, playwriter. So I think I could really, and he lived through a time I would really like to hear his take on today. He lived through an ugly time, in the world, the World War II, and then the coming of communism into Poland. And I think he's seen the political terror, he's seen the murder and the blood. I think it would be a very interesting thing to hear his point of view. And if not him, I would do probably Jonathan Harris, who is my favorite actor.
a very good choice on the Pope who defeated communism in the Cold War.
Right? He'd be my thing, my number.
Okay, so with that out of the way, we now get on to the topic, which is acting and its ability to teach us how to how to undertake civil dialogue. So, first of all, as an actor, how does the art of acting differ from something like literary creation?
Obviously, the biggest difference is you're reading, right? And with acting, you have an audience, audio, someone listening to you. With theater, you're controlling the narrative. So when I'm on stage, although you have been directed, you have been written, you have been staged, when the curtain goes up, none of those people are there. It's you. Total control in your hands. And I think what happens too is that the audience sees the character as you. He has my look, my voice, my eyes. But so they start to, if the actor is doing a good enough job, the person becomes more real. Now I'm tangible. Now the character is touchable. So it seems more real. In literature, at least for me, reading, when I love to read, but you construct each character, you read how the scene is described, but it's your mind that puts it together. And I think in a lot of ways, your own worldview constructs the lenses with which you read, you know. So I think in some ways, especially today, you can influence more with theater, sadly. And I love that's my passion, but I don't think enough people read. I think you can influence more by theater than you can by reading.
Right. So theater ultimately captures the imagination, whereas reading encourages your imagination to flourish.
Right, right.
Okay, very good difference to make out there. Next up, how would acting as a medium of entertainment resonate with viewers given the fact that it is based on what they see and hear the actors speak?
I think it kind of goes back to being relatable. If when you read or even when you act, when you watch a play, there's something usually in a character that you either like or dislike greatly that you see in yourself. There's some quality that they have that you see that either they've mastered or they've lost control of. But there's something in that character that in your inner being represents you, whether good or bad. And I think that sticks with you. And if the piece is well written and it touches something that has influenced your experience. So if it's about, child abuse and you were abused as a child, or if it's about bullying and you were bullied, or conversely, if it's about bullying and you were the bully. Sometimes you see things when they're projected in front of you that you don't recognize in other ways. So if you read a pamphlet, for example, on bullying, and you just read the words, and it doesn't really connect. You don't really relate. But when you go see it in a show, and there's somebody acting or doing like you, suddenly you realize, how wrong I've been. And I think that identification really touches the soul and resonates.
Wow, quite the answer there. It would also be worth noting that the best movies ever made take advantage of this. Like, for example, the Star Wars trilogy, the original trilogy at the very least, we have the character of Darth Vader from, obviously, the prequels as Anakin Skywalker, and the original trilogy as the tormented figure who fell for lack of a better way of describing things, the romanticized love that he had for Padme. And that love ultimately contributed to his turn to the dark side, with his only being saved by his son, Luke Skywalker, convincing him that he was wrong in his ways to let his love take over him. And as a final act of selfish love, he redeems himself by saving his son from certain death at the hands of Emperor Palpatine.
What I like about that too, that story, they lend a lot of weight to fear leading you down a dark path. And I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the opposite in the Bible, in the scriptures. When you read, the opposite of fear, love isn't listed as hate; it's listed as fear. It's fear that drives you to do silly things, bad things. And then it's backed up by when they say perfect love casts out all fear. When you love somebody unselfishly, you stop being afraid. You're sacrificially, you've already let everything go. What is there to lose? You're not holding on to something anymore. So I like that about Star Wars. They hold on to that.
Exactly. And the character you were pointing out was Master Yoda in The Phantom Menace. Fear is the path to the dark side, they said. And you know how the line goes. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. Mm-hmm. Now, probably the most challenging question so far. It is well known that many actors such as Leonardo DiCaprio and Natalie Portman have used their acting careers as a platform forgive me for my misspelling or my miscue, for social and environmental issues such as climate change, racism, and women's sexual protections. What makes the field of acting so powerful as to enable these stars to use their careers for speaking out about these issues?
I think, it didn't start really take hold until the big studios started. So we're talking maybe, silent films into the talkies, and then into the 30s and 40s, you had large studios who built into their product. So let's, for example, say Cary Grant or, Jimmy Cagney, or my favorite Vincent Price, one of my favorite Vincent Price. The studio made sure those people looked good, and they built up a vision of these people that in some cases simply wasn't true, to make them look like, for all intent and purpose, superstars, superheroes, people that were almost idyllic fairy tale people. In fact, I read that in Maureen O'Hara, her autobiography, she said that the studio PR company had built in, or had it written, in a newspaper magazine, that she swam every morning in an emerald pool. She had a watercolored emerald because she was an Irish actress, and that just wasn't true. It was something that was made up by the studio. So I think it's been going on since then. I think it goes on a good deal now. These people, they make them look beautiful. They make sure that they're eating properly, and television too. With television now, you have them coming into your home. They're becoming really terribly familiar, and social media. You can follow anybody you like on social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. They're all on there, and so they become more familiar, and their opinion suddenly means something to you. I don't really agree necessarily with a lot of the power that they do have. I think that they, whether intentionally or unintentionally, misuse it quite a lot. I think the environment is good. I think that's important. I think women's rights are extremely important. But I think that they get involved politically sometimes when they shouldn't. Or when people I shouldn't say that. I should say the actors get involved with it. I think that people shouldn't take them quite so seriously, remembering that these are, like they used to say about the Roman emperor, remember thou art mortal. Remember they're mortals. They're just people like you and me, and they make as many mistakes. They might be as misinformed as the next guy. So I think it's built in to the system. I think that they're made to stick out to you, to become important to you. I think they've got enough money to get the publicity they need. But I think some of them, their heart is in the right place. Some of them really do have a good heart.
Definitely some interesting comments there. Now, if it's all right for me to bring out one other point.
Sure.
Now, the field of acting, and in particularly cinema, with how good of a job it does framing the storyline, it has a great potential to give the public to capture the public's imagination as to how history played out, or historical events played out. Like, for example, if someone is interested, like me, or maybe like one of my classmates, in getting to study the American Civil War, they might look to films like Gettysburg, or even the film Gods and Generals, or even with the American Revolution, the film The Patriot. You might find some historical inaccuracies in the film. However, with films like Gods and Generals in particular, which has been highly criticized for being a platform for what was called the Lost Cause, which justified the Confederate States of America, or which tried to justify it anyways. It really staggers you as to how influential those films can become when forming opinions. And it's absolutely crazy how people can just look at this and think, that's history, rather than just watching that and going into the actual history themselves.
I think you know I think that if a film made, a director or producer will try to tell. I heard this said about the Hobbit movies. Will try to tell as close to the story as they can, but there's so much time constraint. So, or you have to take certain license to make it interesting visually. So, for example, like Tolkien's stories would have said, and the armies fought. But you got to fill that space, somehow with fighting, and so that it can drift off here and there. But it is staggering how much people take at face value what they're watching. They just released a movie on earlier this year called The Two Popes on Netflix, and I don't think it was a fair depiction of. I think it was absolutely pointed toward one gentleman and diminished, or marginalized the other, or made him far more of a monster than not monster, but far more of a colder character than he really is. And so you have a lot, and I know that a lot of people jumped on that right away, like, you see, you've got kindly Pope Francis and the Panzer Pope Benedict, and that's simply not the truth. And a lot of that, happens all the time. They take aspects of a story and they use it to sell their own product.
So historical romanticism is what's going on with this film in particular?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a very gentle, kindly turn Pope Francis, which I'm sure he is. And a very kind of harsh, stern, strict kind of Benedict who doesn't see beyond really the end of his own nose, and that's simply not true. And that's just one example. There are plenty. There are plenty of good ones too. There was a lovely one made about Mother Teresa that was very, very good. So it really depends on who the director is and what his intent is and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I could say the same thing about the film Lincoln from 2012 with Daniel Day-Lewis's depiction of Lincoln. And how great that was and how accurate. However, for the sake of time, unfortunately, this is a very deep discussion we are having right now. However, for the sake of time, we do have to advance.
Sure.
So, how has the platforming of actors on key issues such as race relations and the socialism question contributed to the state of civil dialogue in America today?
I personally don't think a lot. I don't think it's contributed to dialogue as much as it perhaps should. I think that what needs to be happening, and what is kind of happening is not happening. I think that you need somebody who is, I think again, you've got extremes and we need to find a middle. I think that you've got, and a more intellectual approach to these issues rather than emotional. And that's hard in cinema. That's very, to their credit, it's very difficult to do, to come up with something that's passionate but not overrun with emotion. I will tell you though, The Help, I think that's a brilliant movie. And I think that opens people's eyes up. I think the actors in that movie did a beautiful job. Villain and protagonist, brilliant job in that movie, influencing people.
Very good. Okay. So just to clarify, has it, you say it hasn't helped. Has it rather hindered?
I don't know that it's, I think hinder more than help in a lot of ways. I think we don't have a lot of really sound voices out there. I think that everything that's going on right now, we need a few more. I don't really hear a whole lot of anything being said other than change.
Right.
Not how do we go about this, not what direction do we go in, although there is a movie there, to be fair, there are two. There was a really lovely film with the guy Viggo Mortensen from Lord of the Rings, where he played an Italian chauffeur, and he had an African American boss, and that was a really good movie. That, I think, is what you need: a good story, and I mean good with a good ending. And it was a true story. And I think that that's the ticket. Find Stop. I think right now what you have a lot of going on is people splitting sides. Instead of bringing things together, you have more of a wedge being formed.
Quite the point of view to be expressed there. Okay, to wrap us up, how can cinematic/stage play creators use acting to teach current and future generations how to properly execute and influence civil dialogue for the better?
I think working on things that are more intellectually strong, don't dummy down the message. I think people are a lot more sophisticated than they're being given credit for. I think that again, people need more stories with a hopeful ending, and less with just leaving you angry or sad. I think that they need to find I wish I could remember the name of that darn movie. But you need something that ends with people, in this case, together, realizing I've been wrong, you've been wrong. And there have been what's going on right now is just awful. It is awful, and there are many things that have to be reformed. And I think that can be told. I think you can do that. I think you can show the brutality of what's going on and the ugly side of it, but you can redeem it. I think because the average person wants it redeemed. I think the average person wants to see justice for all. I think the average American wants to see justice for everybody. And so I think if you do it right, you can show that.
All right. Now, as one last side question to wrap us up, would that constitute balancing passion and intellectual thought into one like that?
If you could, and I would almost say, I would sacrifice a little of the passion and lean more to the intellect, if I could, because I think that there's a whole part in Dante's Inferno when people who had anger, who were dealing with anger, had smoke in their eyes the whole time. There was a mist in their eyes so that they couldn't see. I think passion does that. It sometimes blinds you, or makes it harder to see. Anger does, passion makes things a little harder to see as they are. Intellect is that good balance.
Well, I can tell you this is the most amazingly answered series of questions I have ever been given on any episode so far. Mr. Panzarotto, thank you very much for coming onto the show, and good luck.
I love it. It was great fun. Thank you.
All right. Now, if you liked this video, please leave a like, and don't forget to share a comment down below as per your thoughts with the discussion at hand. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for further updates on the show's developments. We have a lot of new exciting episodes coming your way, and we hope to have many, many guests on for as long as possible. But until the next episode comes, you have been watching Civil Dialogue, and I have been your host, the Creative Nerd. Good night, everybody.
Remember,